2 days ago, Canadian election happened, and Alberta is currently preparing a referendum for Alberta seceding Canada.
Yeah, I saw that.
There's a lot of proponents of joining the U.S. There are a lot of people who just want to first run the referendum and show Canada that Alberta actually does want out. And I'm in this unique position. I don't need to read the news. By the amount of application and scheduled calls from a certain jurisdiction, I can spot that something is going on.
Yeah.
So yesterday was like notification after notification from Canada. So with this ability to secede, but still always rooting for not secession, it's the whole concept of the idea of having a gun is not having to use it. So it's like, hopefully it will never fire, but I have it in my pocket. And
Right.
that's a good position to have. The question is Alberta in this position of like, yeah, we're strong, we are able to leave, and there is the United States that can potentially say, yeah, welcome over here. What are your readings on that?
So I think the dynamics would be similar in the respect of like, okay, you have all these assets, you have this negotiating power, but if in the case of Alberta, if they don't have their own military, then you have this imbalance, and that you would ultimately need an ally like the United States to prevent the communists that don't want you to leave from not being able to go to war with you, to then allow you to do that. And then maybe that stalking horse allows for a negotiation to happen that otherwise wouldn't or couldn't happen.
Yeah. Me having lived through experience of a nearby country running a referendum and certain states leaving their previous nation and joining Russia, and how it all unfolded in the following years makes me think that, are we at the steps of a next geopolitical disaster between the U.S. and Canada? Like, is it going to be bad? Does that smell bad?
I would say, like, we need to get a Canadian in to talk. It's like, I'm sure that it's like, I think that there are interesting dynamics that are parallel where, say we live in Texas and changes were made over the past 4 years that directly impacted us at the border, where, and it was an interesting dynamic where basically Governor Abbott had dispatched the Texas Guard or Texas National Guard to the border, and then there wasn't a standoff, but there was a potential crisis between basically U.S. interests at the border and personnel and Texan personnel, and then it just disappeared quietly, and no one really speaks of it again. But if you think about, like, just like I would hate to speak about Canadian interests with not being a Canadian.
Yeah.
But there are similarities between Alberta and Texas, and so speaking from a perspective of Texas, saying, hey, we have this border that hundreds of thousands of people are being allowed to come across, and you're not doing anything about it, and you're telling us that we can't do anything about it. Like, that is a massive problem, and that if that had persisted, that ultimately there becomes a tipping point where you say, no, are you kidding me? We have to secure our own interests. And in the state of Texas, and I don't know this about Canada, that the states are sovereign, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, if that is true in Canada, but I do see the parallels. So there becomes a tipping point where you would just say enough is enough. At some point, freedom is what actually matters to us the most, and our whole history in this country says that at some point you have to fight for that, and that might happen there, but not being from there and not truly appreciating the dynamics, I don't want to pontificate too much.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, definitely.